Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to begin with a few administrative announcements. The event is being recorded, so please mute your microphone when not speaking. Please turn on your camera and have a full name showing so our presenters can see their audience. The rules of engagement for the panel will be explained prior to the first panelist starting their remarks, so everyone will know how to engage during the program. Help facilitate connections by providing your name and contact information in the public chat channel. Also include what you offer or seek from the Purple Connection community. The chat will be saved before the end of the meeting. I'll clean it up of any superfluous dialogue not needed to be shared. And that chat will be shared to attendees in an email probably tomorrow. All people who registered for the program, whether they attend or not, will receive a link to the recorded program in a few days. It'll be early next week. So with that done as the admin announcement, I'm going to go ahead and begin the program now. So good afternoon, everyone. There's a few more people who've come on. I am Emma Toops, the Executive Chair for American Warriors and the facilitator for the Purple Connection. This event is hosted and sponsored by Toops Consulting, LLC. David and I are connectors, coaches, and consultants in Toops Consulting, and we thank you for all being here. Welcome especially to those who this is your first Purple Connection event. For our new attendees, thank the person who invited you as they felt that you might benefit or contribute by being a part of this community. To our regulars, thank you for being here. It's good to see you again. Next slide. This is the event agenda, and I'll be doing a little bit of an introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection shortly, and then introduce the educational networking program with some ROE. We'll have our program with our 3 panel program speakers representing an organization. We'll have a Q&A of 15 minutes, and then a transition tips speaker. And then I will start wrapping up the meeting by sharing certain things about how you can get involved with American Warriors, do some future event announcements, and then wrap up. Next slide. So first off, an introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection. American Warriors is a special interest group of the ACA Business Club, which is a private club with the philosophy that business flows out of relationships. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Thus, members are committed to creating solid connections by learning and practicing the fundamentals of strategic networking and relationship building. American Warriors, then, are club members who have an affinity with or support those who have served our country in military or public service. The mission statement for American Warriors is provide educational and networking opportunities for patriotic citizens who are leaders in business and support the transition into private and public sector business of active duty service members and first responders. The Purple Connection is one vehicle for American Warriors to fulfill its mission. Next slide. So the challenges of transitioning from the military is a very well-researched problem. It's evident by the multitude of military support nonprofits and the community organizations that provide services to address them. Driving Community Impact was a white paper published in April of 2015 by the IVMF of Syracuse University. And they determined after several years of research and thousands of surveys that the leading gap in services was not the lack of services, but the lack of connectedness of the services and support. Very often, transitioning military feel a loss of purpose. They feel isolated or misunderstood, or they feel overwhelmed for their need of help, but are disconnected or lack affinity to the people and culture of their new environment. So how do you solve it? You create a partnership of stakeholders who have a common goal for supporting American Warriors. The Purple Connection is a community of partnered stakeholders with a common focus of service, support, and care so that we can effectively address the challenges of transition. So, what's up with the name? There's actually 2 reasons for it. In government jargon, the color for joint is purple. When our military is operating overseas on a deployment, that environment is comprised of a multitude of seemingly disparate entities with differing purposes, but they have a common goal through the operation that unites and focuses their effort. TPC is an effort to replicate this type of joint environment to support the American warrior in transition. Another reason is that when you combine the colors of red and blue, you get purple. In the purple connection, we're facilitating the connection of individuals who identify more closely to either the military community or the military support and business community. And when they come together, it's a purple connection. So here are the vision and mission of the purple connection. We create awareness to enable access and then empower action through collaboration and encouragement to expedite reintegration, support growth and healing, and enable opportunities. We do this by regularly bringing together community experts and facilitating connections through educational networking. Next slide. All right, so here are the rules of engagement for our panel program and networking. Each participant will have 8 minutes to deliver their remarks. There will be a timer. The time can be stopped short and given back for specific Q&A or used up entirely by the panelist. However, when the timer goes off, please wrap up and we'll move on to the next presenter. Once each panelist has spoken, there'll be 15 minutes for the Q&A with the TPC community. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking or you want to remain anonymous with your question, you can private chat your question to me and I will ask it for you. Please be succinct in your questions and direct them to a specific panelist or to the community if it's a more general question. If you have a complicated question, you may ask it to discover if there is a subject matter expert in the audience. But if a response would take longer than 2 minutes to address it, I'll recommend that the follow-up be done after the event. After the Q&A, there'll be 8 minutes for our transition tips speaker, who will provide an educational presentation for the paradigm or process shifts or recommend resources that apply to the topic of the day. After the presentations, if you haven't already, share in the public chat your contact information, how you serve or need support from the community, and that chat will be saved and distributed to all attendees in a cleaned up copy in an email tomorrow. You can follow up with each other as you like. I will then do announcements and then wrap up the event. All right. So our first panel member is our military spouse entrepreneur. Trish Walker was an Air Force spouse and has been a successful business executive for multiple companies. She's currently the CEO of 180 Elite Cleaning and recently co-founded a nonprofit, Monkey Brain Art, with her husband, Gary, who will speak later in the program. Trish, are you on the call?
Hello.
Hello.
Emma.
Hi, there you are.
Sorry, we were out at a networking event, so we're making do here.
Oh yeah, no problem. That's the beauty of one of these things as far as the use of Zoom. Okay, let me set the timer and you'll have 8 minutes to speak.
You're up.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I just want to tell you a little bit about me and my husband and our company. So we had a commercial janitorial company. Well, Gary was in the Air Force and got out of the Air Force, medically retired, got out of the Air Force, and we both kind of bounced around for jobs, and then we started a janitorial company. We had that company for 23 years. We sold it in 2014. And then we had a non-compete for 3 years and then jumped back in. So the first janitorial company was veteran owned. And then we just opened another one about 4 years ago. And we made it woman owned. So we tried the veteran owned angle, and you would think that you would get a lot of support that way, but we didn't. And so we decided to try it on the woman owned angle. And so we currently have had this business for 4 years. We have about 20 employees. We clean about 23 buildings. And our other business, we had grown it to we had 250 employees, and we cleaned 147 buildings a night. So we don't ever want to go back to that. That was crazy times for us. And so we're taking it, we're being very selective on the business that we choose now from all, you learn and live, you learn mistakes, you learn what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So I guess that's the beauty of having a business and then going back into it again. Gary and I have a passion to work with veterans, and we have started a non-for-profit called Monkey Brain Art. So we're really putting a lot of effort into that. That's why we were out networking today, trying to grow support for that organization also. So, and Gary will tell you a little bit more about that when he talks. But last year, 2019, I found out I had breast cancer. And so Gary and I switched roles for a little while, and he ran the whole business because I couldn't be out during COVID and breast cancer. So that was an interesting time in our business as well. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you about our business. It's been great to just get back into it. And we had a lot of first we were like, no, we don't want to do that again. And we had a lot of customers that were very interested in us serving them again. So it was kind of easy just to jump right back into it after being out of it. So I kind of relate it to having your second child. You forget the pain. The first one, you forget how much pain it was. And you're like, oh yeah, let's do it again. And then, but anyway, it's something we're great at. We obviously have the challenge everybody else is having right now with employees. So we get to leave this Zoom call and go clean a building because we're still we have 4 openings. And so that's kind of our biggest challenge is employees right now. Most of our employees, the great thing about it is they are, it's their second income. So it's not their main income. They just need a little extra to make it through the month. And so I think that, they can come or go, it's not like their main money coming in, but, we have great employees and we're very blessed by that. And, yeah, I think that's it. I'm sure I have a lot of time left. I talk too fast.
You are just fine, Trish. You actually have 4 minutes left.
Oh my goodness.
You're probably the fastest talker as far as the 8 minutes for a panel person. So we can open it up for some very specific questions to you since we still have time for you. I have one.
Okay.
So kind of the theme of the day is kind of caregivers, when family members become caregivers. And you'll probably hear a little bit of that tied in with some of the other panel people. But tell us a little bit about that when you had to do it for Gary.
So, Gary, we got married when we were very young. So we were 8. I was 18, he was 19. So he went to basic training. I graduated high school. He came home. We got married. And then our first duty assignment was Minot, North Dakota. So fast forward a few years, we get stationed in Germany. Gary gets injured and he's medically retired at 25 years old. So, so basically our whole marriage, Gary has had medical issues. He's had 14 back surgeries. He's recently had a hip replacement. He had 4 eye surgeries 2 years ago. He's had knee surgery. So I've spent a lot of time caring for Gary. He also has PTSD. So, I feel like I'm not a good nurse, but I've nursed Gary. And then reversal happened. And so he nursed me. So he's a much better nurse than I've ever been a nurse to him. So yeah, it was a challenge because we also had our business. So probably he had 2 surgeries when he was in the military. He had 2 surgeries in the military, and all the rest of them were while we were growing our business, where we had 250 employees, 147 buildings. So that was really challenging to take care of him and our company and our children and run our household. And luckily I was much younger then. So I look back now and I think, I don't know how in the world I did all that. And I'm kind of hard-headed where I don't really accept help very easily. Now I'm learning it's a lot easier when people help you. And so, yeah, so we've, I don't know, I seriously do not know how we did what we did back then. So anyway, that's a little bit about
No
that journey.
problem. Okay, there was a couple questions asked in the chat. Where are your job openings and what is the average rate for pay?
We start out at $12 an hour currently. And right now we have an opening in Marion, Kansas. We also have an opening up north. So most of our jobs are all part-time. It's a couple out 2 to 3 hours a night. And some of them would be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some of them would be like Tuesday, Friday. And then we have some that are Monday through Friday. So, COVID really since 2008, we went through that whole crazy time. And a lot of people changed their cleaning service from 5 days a week to maybe 3 days or 2 days. And then we went through COVID, which you would think that people would want more cleaning because of all the germs, but no, they want less cleaning. So it's just one of those industries that, people don't realize how dirty a building is. And even when we like to go out and clean because you get your hands on something, you're like, oh my goodness, this building is so dirty. And so we like to go out and work with our employees and just make sure that they're doing a great job. So.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much. The timer has gone off. It's not as jolting as it used to be. I'm using a different timer than from when I first started doing this. So let's go ahead and get the second panel person introduced. Next is our military support nonprofit. Shawn Moore was previously a Kansas City, Missouri police officer, and she is married to an Army retiree. She is now the executive director of Caregivers on the Homefront. It's a nonprofit that she founded after she became a caregiver to her military husband. Shawn, I know you're here. Let's see ya.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am
right.
here. Not in Kansas City. That's why I lost connection for a minute. We are actually coming to you from Texas. Again, like Emma said, my name is Shawn Moore, and I am the executive director and founder of Caregivers on the Homefront, which I founded in 2017 when I found no support in the Kansas City area for caregivers of veterans. My husband is a veteran of 23 years, and did I lose you? No? Okay, just wanted to make sure. He is an Army veteran of 23 years. And when I started searching for something for me, how could I best support him? There was nothing in the Kansas City area. So I had a grand idea to start a nonprofit of my own. Some days I sit here and go, why didn't you just go work for one instead of starting one? But here we are. Quite into it. We offer mental health and wellness programs for veteran and military caregivers. And those are all evidence-based programs. They are put together by, I'm a licensed master social worker. Our program director is also a licensed master social worker, and our yoga and meditation contractor is a therapist in yoga and meditation. So we come at the caregiver a little differently, in that if the caregiver is not being supported in their own mental health and wellness, that veteran is not healing and recovering. They don't recover and heal in a vacuum. They do that for those that have family around their family. And if that family is not healing, the veteran can get as much help as you want to possibly throw at them. But when they come home to their family, we can make or break it. And I've done that really well. So it's very vital that when you put programs together for veterans, look past the veteran. And I see a lot of you, some of you offer school programs and things like that. My husband can't go to school and he can't work, but I need to. And so do the many, many caregivers. They need to support. They need the education. They need the job training. Some of the veterans can't at this point in time. So I always ask that people really look past that veteran and look to their family and how they can support their family member as well, because they may be the only one that is able to get the support at the time. So we do mental health counseling, not only for the caregiver, but the children as well. Many of them are secondary caregivers, and they take that role on very young in their life. And if you want to think about caregiving, think about that on the scale of, some of our veterans are in their 20s. And if they're wounded or ill, that caregiver, how long do you think they're going to take care of that veteran? Many, many years, not just a few. Many years. So how can we best support them? And it's through a mental health and wellness that's going to sustain their journey of caregiving. And that's what we really do here at Caregivers on the Homefront. We do trauma support groups. That trauma could be related to their veteran. But caregivers are human too, and they come from all walks of life. They have their own trauma, and they need a space to talk about their own traumas, not just the trauma of the veteran. Why I'm coming to you from Texas, we are at Weatherford, Texas, hosting what we call a caregiver mental health and wellness restorative weekend. It's an all expenses paid weekend for the caregiver that works solely on their mental health and wellness. It's not about the veteran, it's about them and how they can sustain the journey when they go back home and walk into the same thing that they left. It's not a retreat. It's a very hard weekend. We don't go home with pretty nails, because pretty nails aren't a sustainable journey. We go home with mental health and wellness tools so they can best support their veteran on the road to recovery. I'm going to end there just because I want to give time for questions. If I can end with anything other than, please, when you're thinking about the veteran, look past the veteran and realize that their caregiver needs just as much support as the veteran does. And maybe the veteran's not ready to get help, but I can guarantee you that caregiver is waiting and needing that support.
Okay, we have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left of your 8. We will have the 15-minute community Q&A as well. So does anybody have a question for Shawn?
I would like to raise my hand.
Go ahead.
Shawn, first of all, thank you so much. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, because we work with a lot of veterans, and you know how there are a lot of people that need help with that caregiving. It's a national crisis. So thank you so much for what you do. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to not only connect with you, but find out what are all the different areas of the state that you work in. Where can people, you get what I'm asking, right?
Yep, I do.
Yes.
Yes, because I didn't mention that, right? We're based in Kansas City. We live in Kansas City. Although we support caregivers, obviously we're in Texas. We have caregivers all over the United States. And I will tell you, one of the crazy things that I have found, Kansas City may be a veteran town, city, but we are not a military town. Therefore, I think we have a tough time looking past the veteran to their family. So we get more support nationally than locally, which for me is, it's a really hard pill to swallow because I know there's caregivers right in our backyard. And when Emma said one of the things why she brings the Purple Connection together and people together, there's a lot of organizations in Kansas City that don't work together. And I think that's a travesty because we're missing the family members. And so, answer to your question, we go everywhere. We've got mental health and wellness restorative weekends once a month. We do have them. We were just having them in Kansas City until we had caregivers requesting us to come to lots of different places. Our next stop next month is just outside of St. Louis. Again, all of our programs, they're free. The caregiver's not paying anything.
Shawn, I have a question for you.
You bet.
Is there any way of that you include way past veterans? Like I know several veterans who are 80 and 90 years old. Is there any place in there, or is there a need for that sort of clientele?
I think there's a need. Here's the interesting thing in regard to those older era veterans, which is really sad in regard to the caregiver. How long have they been caregiving? For years. And many of our organizations that care for the caregiver are only post 9/11 organizations. We are not. We support all eras of veteran caregivers, all eras of veteran caregivers. And I can tell you, how much could we learn being new caregivers from that older generation of caregivers? So Bruce, that's an area, I will tell you, that's a demographic that often is hard to reach because many of them aren't online. They're not on Facebook, right? They're not on social media. So it takes people like you that go back to your communities and say, hey, I've got this group that we heard about. They serve all eras of caregiving. We want that.
Okay. Very good. Great question, BJ. We're needing to come on with the next presenter. There are some questions that were asked in the chat. We will ask them in the Q&A. All right. Can you bring up the slides, David? All right. Our military-friendly company speaker is Shari McCants. She is an educator in health and wellness. She was previously a nutritionist, but is now a regional elite director with Kannaway CBD. Shari, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay? Yes?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I'm honored to be here and honored to share. I love to educate. So what I first like to talk about, first of all, is a little bit of the history of hemp. And I don't know if you know this, but in the early 16th century, basically we've got hemp grown everywhere. You know, your forefathers, Jefferson, Adams, Washington, they said grow hemp everywhere. They were actually fined if they didn't grow it. So I just think it's very interesting. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence is actually on hemp paper. In 1920, Henry Ford actually built the first hemp car. And today's day, the Mercedes-Benz, the hemp is actually on the door panels. So there's lots and lots of uses for hemp. But William Hearst, he was a newspaper Mongol and he was threatened by hemp. So in 1937, they had the Marijuana Tax Act. And what happened is the farmers were taxed so high that they could no longer grow hemp. And the thing is people sometimes don't even know the difference between hemp and marijuana. I mean, it's both from the cannabis plant, but hemp is high and very tall and lengthy, and it has a very, very high concentration of CBD, but a low concentration of THC, where marijuana is actually short and bushy. It has a very high concentration of THC, low concentration of CBD. So I like to think of it as a citrus fruit. You know, you've got a lemon, you've got oranges, grapefruit. They're all citrus, but they're still different citrus fruits. That's the same thing with marijuana and hemp. It's actually two different things. Also, the endocannabinoid system. Then, what is this? So the endocannabinoid system or cannabinoid system is actually the largest self-regulatory system in everyone's body. Everyone has them, including your dog, your cat, your horse. And it actually governs your mood, your sleep, your appetite, and your metabolism. So CBD is great. You have CB1 receptors in your brain and your nervous system. That's hence the PTSD, anxiety, depression, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's. And then you've got your CB2 receptors in your gut lining for your immune system, like Crohn's disease, any GI diseases. And the thing is I'm not a doctor and I'm not claiming these things. What I am telling you is that there is a organization out there. It's a nonprofit called Echo Connection. I can put it in the chat. It's echoconnection.org, and it's a nonprofit with lots of studies of CBD and health issues. And as a nutritionist, I was very upset. I'm like, really? I'm like, there's something out there that can help people naturally, and I didn't know it. Actually, in 2003, there's a patent, a government patent 6630507, that says cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. So that was a big deal for me. Another big deal was that I'm a mother and I have two adorable children and I breastfed. You actually get CBD the first time as a child through the mother's breast milk. It's in the colostrum. So those were some really, really big aha moments. The other thing about CBD is you got to be careful where you get it. You got to have a reliable source. So you want to make sure that it's an organic, that there's no pesticides, no herbicides, non-GMO. The company I represent has all that, triple lab tested, the no herbicides. It actually has a U.S. Hemp Authority seal, which means what's in the bottle is in the bottle. And also, we are the only company that is PDR listed. Now, what that means is physician desk reference. It used to be a big thick book. When you were at your doctor's office, you would see that, which basically is a book that kind of tells you about the interactions with pharmaceuticals. And we have the licensing rights to the PDR. Now it's called the prescriber's digital reference, because now everything is all on technology. It's all online. But anyway, you do want to be careful. So why Kannaway? We are the world's first entrepreneurial legal cannabis opportunity. We were the first to ever bring CBD to the world. Back in 2009, our parent company, Medical Marijuana, is publicly traded, MJNA, and Kannaway is one of their subsidiaries. Canna Life Sciences is another one, which is actually a research and development company. So before ever being a direct sales company, we were research and development. But right now, in 2018, prior, the CBD industry was about 591 million. Today, and up to 2022, it will be a $22 billion industry. And we're in the United States, we're in Japan, we're in Mexico, and we're in Europe. And so what I'm here to say is that there's lots of opportunity out there in the cannabis space. And I love to partner with people. I love to help military families and friends. A lot of people just don't understand and they don't know where to get it, and they want that education. So I'm here to offer that to you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So I have, I don't know how many minutes I have left.
Oh, wow. You have 2 minutes left in your time. You thought you were going to go over.
I did.
Okay. So Very interesting. I know a lot of what you've already said because I know you, but the theme of the day, as far as when someone in the family becomes a caregiver, CBD is something that has just kind of became a buzzword in the last few years,
Right.
and alternative therapies and different ways to deal with things that people aren't responding to in the traditional sense. I think Gary will probably talk a little bit about that in his remarks later. But as far as the opportunities, there's a business opportunity, right? That's what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, if you want me to expand on that a little bit.
Just a little bit, because
yeah.
there are career opportunities for people who are in transition, and things are some of the things that we talk about in the community dialogue. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is you can be a cannabis farmer, you can be, open up a nutrition store, you can do any of that, but it's going to set you back a lot of money. And with Kannaway, everything that's all taken care of. I mean, our crop is actually grown in the Netherlands, where there's no herbicides or pesticides or anything. And we've been doing it since 2009. So we're like the wise old owl out there. We didn't just put some seeds of hemp in the ground and grow it. It takes 4 years to have a really, really good CBD concentration. So yeah, we have great opportunities for you as far as helping others with getting, the source, from a good source. And just to let you know, our pure product is WADA, which is World Anti-Doping Association approved. So we do have military people that can take it because there is absolutely no THC in it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So it's good. It is being used by athletes as well as people who are in these high performance industries where, the fear of drug testing
Right.
could jeopardize their performance or their careers. So, all right, that timer has gone off for our panel program. So I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for our Q&A period. And the Q&A period is something to where you can specifically ask one of our panel people for, something specific to their organization or their expertise, or it can be something a little bit more general if there is a question or support request that is needed by somebody. We can see if someone in the audience can help make a connection to a resource or answer that question. All right, so we'll go ahead and start that. Does anybody have a question for our panel people or the community?
Yeah, Emma, this is BJ again.
Okay.
I'm wondering if the panelists can tell me about the long-term distance of help and the percentage of people who are helped immediately as opposed to those who need help forever.
Can you expand on your question just a little bit?
Well, sometimes as a caregiver or an entrepreneur inspirer, sometimes PTSD patients, so to speak, will get back on their feet, back into the United States very quickly. And sometimes they're stuck for a very, very long time, perhaps their whole life. Do you have an estimation of the percentage of people who are along that timeline and how often it takes to get them back into shape that is acceptable without need for help very soon?
I think that varies, and I'm not going to be able to give you certain specifics or statistics surrounding that, because PTSD is, although it's one diagnosis, one disorder, it's specific to that person, and mental health is specific to each individual. One person with depression may do just fine in their everyday life, and another one may be so debilitating that they cannot carry on a normal life. And PTSD is much like that. One person with PTSD can get treatment, can learn how to cope with PTSD and go to work and function as, I don't want to say normal because none of us are normal, but as normal as possible. And someone else just can't. And they can go to every bit of treatment, take every medicine or CBD and go to a group and not recover. So it's so specific to that person, as well as, I will tell you, in regard to military, the research in regard to PTSD, those that have experienced the same event in war, and those that generally come home with PTSD and are not doing well, generally had childhood trauma. So there's so much more that is setting in PTSD with our military and veterans. And it's not just, I don't want to say just, because just going to war isn't just going to war, but it's generally more than that. So it's just so unique to the person. Mental health is so unique to each person.
I have a question. It's a little bit related to what BJ just asked. So the difference between acute care and chronic care. With caregivers, is there emergency care available, or is it more the long-term chronic care that you're helping with, support to the caregiver?
I think it's more a long-term, and that's what's so, I think, unique about our program is we start tomorrow. When these caregivers come for this restorative weekend, it can't be just about the weekend, right? It cannot be just about the week. There's be some support in there afterwards, because veterans' mental health and their physical health goes up and down, right? So if you're not supporting the caregiver long-term, are you supporting the caregiver? Just coming in for a crisis, and if it's a crisis with the veteran, who are we serving generally? If the crisis is with the veteran, the VA is serving the veteran. But think about it, and this is my personal story. Has suicide, and he goes to acute care. Everyone is focused on him. What do you think the family went through? The family's going through something too, right? How can we support that family at home when their loved one has just attempted suicide? So one thing that we don't talk about very often, suicide rates in our caregivers are very high. And we don't talk about that a lot.
I've never seen any statistics on that, Shawn.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me see if a research study just came out from a dear friend of mine, actually, who lives in Texas, a researcher, Dr. Roxana Delgado, just came out with research in regard to suicidality in our veteran caregivers. And I am going to put that in the chat. I'm telling you, it needs to be read. It needs to be out there, because we're not talking about it. The mental health of our caregivers is that we do not talk about.
I'd like to ask a question of the walkers. So the walkers, they've had experience of both caregiving for each other over, the last few years, most recently with Gary caring for Trish, but with Gary being a wounded veteran. Could you talk a little bit about kind of the role reversal and how it felt different because of the experience of caregiving already, if that makes any sense.
Sure. No, absolutely. So, for most of our marriage, as Trish said, she had to take care of me because I just keep breaking myself. And so, and she's a great nurse. Don't let her kid you. She's a great nurse. But Trish has spent the last, I would say, almost 30 years of our life working out daily, eating the right things, not smoking, exercising, not drinking very much alcohol, if no alcohol at all. And so she cared for herself with vigor. And then for her to get a call the day after her birthday, when she's driving her car, to say that she had breast cancer, was devastating. And so we've been so used to dealing with those calls for me, and you've got to have another surgery, or your back's failing, or your hip has completely collapsed and you need a replacement. It's almost become like, okay, yeah, we can do that. We can get through it. We'll tough it out. But the terrible disease of cancer does so much to not just the person's body, but mentally, physically, spiritually. As a woman having cancer, it removes your femininity. It attacks your femininity and your energy and all the things that come with it. So I had to be very aware of what was coming next, because unfortunately they don't give you a book. They don't say, hey, here's a book. You're going to need to read this as a caregiver to be prepared for what's going to happen. So literally things would happen and I would go, okay, note to self, this is going to happen. I need to do this, or, go out and find help. There's just not a lot out. There's a few books that have been written, but it's not like someone gives you breast cancer for dummies and says, okay, this is how you're going to take care of your wife. So what I started to do, Emma, was, and everyone else, I started really intently, purposely listening to things that Trish said. So when she said, I hate when there's dishes in the sink, there were never dishes in the sink after that. And I know that seems kind of trivial, but that was getting to her that day. That was upsetting her that day. And so worked very hard to listen to what her needs were, even outside of, the chemo and nausea and, her getting cold all the time. There were just so many things that she went through. And then the emotional part of it. Trish, during our marriage, has never been a crier. I've always been the one that, I'll sit there and bawl at a show, or, talking about our kids, I'll cry. But now it's her. We've reversed roles on that, because I felt like I needed to be the strong one for her. I needed to be the rock for her. And it was okay. I kept telling her, it's okay to let go, Trish. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have that moment. Your body's being attacked. And so let's have the cry, and then we'll get strong together. And so that's a lot of what went on in that role reversal of care. And I had to focus on my own health, because I couldn't afford to get sick. Her immune system was completely depleted, and she's battling cancer during COVID. And I would go out to clean, because I had to continue to run the business. And I would go into situations where there was COVID. They would bring me in to fog and sanitize, entire buildings. And when I got home, I had to do just like any doctor or nurse, to not bring that inside. Strip down, get rid of it all, put it in the washer, hot water soap, and then go in with antibacterial and just scrub head to toe before I had any contact with her, the dogs, surfaces, because we just didn't know that much about COVID and how it was transmitted. And to have her so incredibly sick, that if she got COVID, she would have died. And so that was a very difficult time during, and everybody had a very difficult 2020. We just had a little extra added on top of it.
Sure. So I'd like this question to be considered by each of the panelists. We talk about, kind of the traditional therapies, or what is the usual response to some of the challenges of either our wounded warrior or for caring for the caregiver. But I know that there's alternate therapies that you will find very often in the military support community because of the individual, nature, uniqueness of what the challenge is, what the PTS is, like what Shawn was saying. It's very, very individually unique. And CBD also has a very unique response as far as what kind of effect it might have on people. So in the context of your expertise, just kind of maybe spend a little bit of time just to say something to the non-traditional in addressing some of the caregiving challenges.
Anybody?
How about you, Shari, with CBD? What are some of the ways that it has helped in kind of a non-traditional sense with like sleep and or pain or things like that?
Yeah, so because your endocannabinoid system, it governs your mood, your sleep, your appetite, and your metabolism. It's gonna, once you put that CBD in your body, it's actually gonna create homeostasis. And that's just a big word for balance. But that's where you're gonna see the results of, sleep. I mean, if you don't get good sleep during the night, you are not good for the next day. I mean, it's kind of like your phone. If you don't charge your phone overnight, you have a dead battery and you can't use your phone. It's the same with us. So if we get good sleep, that's just so important. And then think of CBD as like a warm blanket over the nervous system. And I just think that's the best way. And it's not like, it's like this aha drug. It's not. It's actually working within your body because you were meant to have it. I mean, hemp was grown everywhere. I mean, we should have had hemp on this, earth so that we could have consumed it the whole time. Because back in 1937, your animals were feeding on it, and then you got it through the animals. If you had a steak or chicken or eggs, you got CBD. You're not getting that now because people are not growing the hemp plant. Most of what they're growing out there is a marijuana hybrid. So you really want that industrial hemp. So we see amazing results with CBD.
That's a great
Okay.
point.
Okay, the timer did go off for the 15-minute Q&A, but we do have one more speaker, which is focused on transition tips. So this actually is a good segue to the alternate, therapies and alternate ways to address some of the care and health challenges. So let's go ahead and let me introduce Gary as our transition tips speaker. All right. So our last speaker of the program today is Gary Walker, and he, as you know, is married to Trish. He is a U.S. Air Force retired, and he can tell you a little bit about his story. But as already mentioned, he and Trish have started a nonprofit, Monkey Brain Art, and so the transition tips we'd like you to speak to are when a family member becomes a caregiver, and just kind of some of the things to think about that maybe are not inherently obvious in that kind of transition.
Well, Shawn covered it so eloquently that, when that caregiver has to take on all the roles to manage the household, to, in our case, run a business, the strain on them is unbelievable, sometimes unbearable. And I, just from my own experience of what we went through, I had worked so hard on those moments of self-care and support, and to make sure that I didn't fall back into the PTSD mode of suicidal ideations, and that was a big struggle. Or that I went off and started drinking again or self-medicating because of I had to take care of Trish. That was my primary role. And so my outlet a lot, besides friends and, the different nonprofits that I've been involved in with, like I said, Battle Within, they were always there to pick me up when I was at a low point. But I switched to my art, and, art saved my life. That's, really what helped me stay grounded and focused, and to be able to quiet that little monkey in the head. And so thus, we came up with the nonprofit Monkey Brain Art. Buddhist monks call an unsettled mind monkey brain. And so because of my PTSD, and obviously, Trish, with her battles that she's been through, and she has childhood trauma, and then now going through cancer, Trish has PTSD as well. And so being mindful and watching, what someone is experiencing, and, what they feel like on that day. And, sometimes you just have to step away, and sometimes you have to get super engaged. But, I would take her to the art studio because we knew that it was safe. Nobody had been there. And so we would take her to the art studio, and we'd do art together. And that was incredible. And to get her engaged in doing something to shut the monkey brain up about her cancer, and about chemo, and about the drugs she was on, and about her nausea, and losing her hair, losing her eyebrows, losing her breasts. I mean, all of that, to be able to take a moment and just focus on something else. And so the art was an unbelievable break. And so we transitioned that. And, in this program that we have, you're taking art, mindfulness, and meditation. I'm the artist. Trish is the certified yogi. And so we have the experience of having PTSD. And so talking to veterans and first responders about, look, this is what's worked for us. This is what we do to heal. This is what we do to check ourselves. This is what we do to stay grounded. And so we're going to give you tools to help you in your journey. Healing is the number one priority, not the art, not the yoga. Those are just pathways to the journey. And so, sorry, I get a little emotional when I talk about this stuff. It was just really hard to see Trish go through this, and to have us stand up in class together now and seeing this dream of us helping veterans and first responders is just, it's such a reward. And it's free. And so if the caregiver wants to come to class, they can come to class. It doesn't cost them anything. The class we've got right now, we've got 2 caregivers in the class with the person they take care of. And so they're getting to experience what Trish and I did when she was going through cancer, going to the art studio and doing a project together. And it bonds you, it frees your mind, it pulls on the creative, which pacifies the monkey. That monkey's up there telling you all the bad things. And what you want to do is you want to manage the monkey. And so that's what we did a lot of, was just managing that monkey for me and for Trish.
Do you have specific resources in the community that you would recommend? As I know that you and several other veterans were featured in a art display, so Was that through a specific organization where you each were able to showcase your art, or how was that, and what resource was that?
So that was Johnson County Arts and Heritage and Arts Johnson County. And they featured 3 veteran artists. And the show was so successful that they've now done a second one, because unfortunately we know 2020 kind of disrupted everything. And so that, and they've been super supportive. They gave me a grant to get Monkey Brain started, because they believed in what we were wanting to do. And so they really came alongside us and said, okay, we're going to help you out. We're going to give you guidance. We're going to give you funds. Because, we know, you have to have that to be a viable, sustainable nonprofit. You've got to have those that are champions. And so, it's been, God's hand is on Monkey Brain art. I don't know how spiritual any of you are. I'm a very spiritual man, and Trish is a very spiritual woman. And we feel that, we know, we've seen obstacles moved before we even knew there were obstacles. We have had gifts to us, not necessarily monetary, but things people have given us that we needed, that we did not express openly that we needed it. We just knew, hey, we need mirrors because we're going to do self-portraits. And so we needed 15 mirrors. Well, we did a cleaning job for a company that's getting ready to open up, and they had a big stack of mirrors sitting on the floor, and they said, hey, we're going to throw that in a dumpster. You guys, is there anything you can do with those mirrors? And there was 15 of them.
Oh, wow.
So that, the power of that just energizes us and reassures us that we're on the right journey that we should be on in this legacy building part of our life. We did janitorial and entrepreneurial and philanthropic endeavors for 30 years now. And it's time for a shift. And because this is our passion, this is what we want to do, and we feel like we need to do. Shawn talks about it. Shawn talks about her passion for the caregivers, because she is one. She has that relational that she can talk to these people, and they know that she's been through it. It's not just a textbook. It's not just an article somebody found on the internet. She lived it. And that's what Trish and I are conveying to these warrior artists, that what we're telling you, we've lived.
Right.
We didn't have to study it because we were in it.
Very good. Well, I am really pleased to follow you on Facebook when you share the photos of what you're doing with your new nonprofit and the classes. We need to move on. We are going a little bit long for the usual hour program, but I want to thank everyone who was part of the panel for educating and informing us today, and for those who had questions and contributed to the discussion. So next slide, David. So if you're interested in continuing to participate more intentionally in some of the facilitated conversations like those that were introduced today, I'd invite you to consider becoming an American Warrior of the ACA Business Club. Becoming an American Warrior affords you with a lot of benefits. You have access to any of the ACA Business Club facilities that are wherever they have them. We have them in various locations around the metro, as well as other places in the country. You'll have access to over 20 interest groups where American Warriors is just about one. You have an option to join a business development team, access to all the club's organized or sponsored events, and to the directory so that you know where people are in other locations, who they are. We have live and virtual networking and learning opportunities every single week, and leadership opportunities if you're interested in stepping into leadership at the team, group, or club level. The Purple Connection and the Strengths Profile Workshop are things that occur every month. And those events are sponsored, organized, and facilitated by my company, by me, Tubes Consulting. And American Warriors are encouraged to attend and invite guests to participate as often as they can in those things, as well as these things also listed there with a monthly discussion group. The social and guest speaker program, we're going to launch that in August. I got a slide coming up to introduce a little bit more information on that. And then, of course, the executive committee and club committees for the American Warriors. Next slide. So for some future events, the American Warriors discussion group is every fourth Thursday of the month. It's from 2 to 3 Central Time. It can be attended at the Overland Park Club in the conference room with me, or attended virtually because we do Zoom it. The topic of the day for this month is health and wellness, physical, behavioral, spiritual, and nutrition. And then the intro to strengths profile workshop that I do is every first Thursday of the month. The first half hour is just an intro to what is it and how do you use it in a personal growth capacity. And then for those who want to actually take the assessment is the remaining hour of the workshop. The Purple Connection, which is this event, is every third Thursday of every month. It is always a Zoom from 4:30 to 5:30 Central. Next slide. So the lineup for next month's program, our veteran entrepreneur is going to be Matt Lawson, who is a U.S. Army Reserves retired Sergeant First Class. He is the co-founder and now executive director of the KC Warriors hockey team. The military support nonprofit is going to be Phil Alvarado, who's the chapter captain of the Kansas City team Red, White, and Blue. Our military-friendly company is actually going to be BJ the DJ, BJ Taylor, who is the owner of BJ Productions. And our transition tips speaker is going to be Andrew Marks, who is an officer candidate in the Missouri Army National Guard. He will be getting his commission later this fall. And the topic of the month is physical fitness and discipline. Next slide. I want everybody to please save the date for Thursday, August 26th. This is going to be our inaugural American Warriors social and guest speaker program. It's going to be in person at the Overland Park ACA Business Club. There is an invitation that's going out in an email tonight, so everybody on the call should be getting that. And there'll be additional information coming out in the weeks as we approach the event. Next slide. So feel free to contact me at my email for any information, or if there's somebody in the community that you didn't catch their name or their contact information. In a few weeks, some of you are going to receive an invitation for TPC referrals, which is an opportunity to intentionally connect with me and up to 3 other members of the community in a Zoom networking event. So those who are invited are actively engaged in the community. They're actively networking, building their business, and are either in transition or have a referrals type of server leader mindset. Sign up for one of those appointments and we'll learn a little bit more about each other and be more intentional in our ability to receive support or refer. Next slide. So thank you very much, everyone. I know we went just a little bit long today. Have a good evening, follow up with each other, and I hope to see you at a future event.
Thanks a lot, Emma.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you next month.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.